Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're cracking open a vital survival manual for the quiet, little, and, well, unfortunately, completely doomed town of Cross Creek. It's just been invaded by legendary monstrous cryptids, and we're going to learn exactly how to defend it. If you've been looking for a beginner-friendly how-to-play guide for the cooperative board game Horrified American Monsters, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to break down the mechanics, the strategies, and honestly, the sheer terror of facing down creatures like the Chupacabra and the Banshee of the Badlands.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our survival plan for Cross Creek. 1. Setting up the board. 2. The Investigator phase. 3. The Monster phase. 4. Citizens and perks. And 5. How to win or lose.
Section 1. Setting up the board. Preparing Cross Creek for the invasion.
Before the monsters can strike, we have to lay the groundwork. And I promise you, setting up the physical board is a super structured and simple process for beginners. It takes just 4 straightforward steps. First up, you assemble your terror marker and drop it directly on the 0 of the terror track right at the top of the board. Second, place your chosen monster mats in a row, going from the lowest frenzy level to the highest. Put their figures on their starting locations and place the frenzy marker. Third, pick your investigators. Pop their standees on their designated starting spots, like the jock at the stadium or the mountain man at the ranger station, and deal everyone 1 face-up per card. Finally, draw 12 random item tokens from that wonderfully decorative bag and place them on the specific board locations listed on each token. And just like that, you're ready to play.
Now, right out of the gate, this brilliantly illustrates one of the game's coolest mechanics, the frenzy marker. When you set up your monster mats, you arrange them by their frenzy order, which you can find in the bottom left of each mat. You place this specific token on the active monster with the lowest frenzy level. So, for example, if you're playing with the Banshee of the Badlands, she has a really low frenzy number, so she gets the marker. This makes her the absolute most erratic threat on the board. Basically, when certain cards are drawn later on, she is going to move and strike way more often than the others.
Let's move to Section 2, the Investigator phase, taking the fight to the cryptids. A full turn in this game is split into 2 halves. You act first, and then the monsters act. So during your Investigator phase, you get to take actions up to the number printed on your specific ID card. Some characters get 3, some get 4, and the journalist actually gets 5. You can mix, match, or repeat any of these options. You can move along lit paths, bringing citizens with you. You can guide a citizen to an adjacent space, pick up any items at your current location, share items with investigators in your exact space. And here's a quick pro tip. Sharing doesn't even have to be a one-to-one trade. Just give someone what they desperately need. Then you have Advance and Defeat, which are how you actually eliminate the monsters. And finally, Special, which lets you trigger your ID card's unique ability.
So the crucial point here is how you use those Advance and Defeat actions, because every single monster requires a totally unique strategy. Let's look at a really great beginner monster, the Chupacabra. To advance the challenge against the Chupacabra, you actually have to travel to the farm and spend actions to place goats on the empty spaces of its monster mat. You got to keep doing this until all 6 goats are placed. Only then can you use the defeat action, which requires you to discard yellow item tokens from your storage that add up to a combined strength of 6 or higher. So you're constantly having to carefully collect the right colored items while managing the rest of the board.
Section 3. The Monster phase. The town strikes back.
Once you've spent all your actions, your half of the turn is over, and this is where the board fights back. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how elegantly the game handles the enemy's AI sequence. The active player simply draws 1 card from the top of the monster deck, and you resolve it in 3 chronological parts, right from top to bottom. Part 1 tells you exactly how many new items to draw from the bag and place onto the board. Part 2 is an event that might trigger a special ability, but keep in mind, that's only if the specific monster listed is currently in your game. And Part 3 dictates which monsters move, how far they travel, and how many dice are going to roll for a monster strike. If a monster gets activated by that card, here is exactly how they hunt you down. They will always take the shortest possible path toward the closest character on the board. The terrifying part, their movement stops immediately if they reach a character's space, triggering an attack. Even worse, if they start their turn already sharing a space with a character, they don't move at all. They just immediately attack. And if a monster happens to land on a space containing both a citizen and an investigator, well, they're smart. They'll always prioritize attacking the investigator over the helpless citizen.
Now, if a monster does manage to catch you, they strike by rolling the number of dice indicated on their monster card. When those dice hit the table, you are going to be begging for blank faces, because a blank is a miss with absolutely no effect.
However, if they roll an attack symbol, that equals 1 hit per symbol. And if they roll that dreaded exclamation mark, no way around it. The monster's unique special power activates once for every single exclamation mark rolled.
Section 4. Citizens and Perks. Protecting the locals of Cross Creek.
Surviving those brutal dice rolls brings us to a really crucial point. You aren't just trying to save your own skin here. There are innocent people wandering around this nightmare. And there's a massive difference in how the locals handle an attack compared to you. If your investigator takes a successful hit from a monster, you've got a built-in defense. You can completely ignore that hit by just discarding one item from your personal storage to the community discard pile. But a citizen? Citizens can't hold items. If a monster hits a citizen, they have 0 defense. They are immediately defeated. That is exactly why they need you to escort them.
The good news is, the game heavily incentivizes you to be a hero through a really rewarding loop. First, a citizen appears on the board, usually triggered by one of those monster card events we talked about. Second, you use your actions to guide or move them to the specific safe location printed right on the bottom of their standee. Third, once they arrive, they're safe. You just remove them from the board. And finally, as a reward, you get to draw a powerful perk card. Honestly, these cards are amazing. You keep them face up, you can strategize with the table about them, and you can play them on literally any player's turn during the hero phase. Best of all, playing a perk card doesn't even cost you an action. It's purely a bonus for being a good Samaritan.
Section 5. How to win or lose. The fate of the town.
All of this item collecting, citizen saving, and monster dodging culminates in a few possible endgame states. First, let's talk about what happens when things go wrong. If an investigator doesn't have any items to discard and gets hit, they're defeated. But the good news is, player elimination isn't really a thing here. You just remove your investigator, pop them over at the hospital, and you take your next turn completely normally, with all your items and perks intact. However, the true penalty is that the terror level increases by 1. And remember, if an unprotected citizen is defeated, that terror level also bumps up by 1.
This all ties directly into the endgame scenarios. There's only one way to achieve victory. You and your team absolutely must complete the challenges and defeat all active monsters being played in your game. Do that, and you save the town. But there are 2 ways to lose. First, if you or the citizens die too many times, and that terror marker reaches the top of the track with the skull symbol, it's instant defeat. The town is completely abandoned to the monsters because everyone is simply too horrified to continue. The second way to lose is if the monster deck completely runs out of cards. You'll get one final turn to try and salvage things, but if you have to enter a monster phase and you can't draw a card, time's up and the monsters win.
So what does this all mean? The ultimate question remains, will you coordinate your actions, manage your items, and secure Cross Creek? Or will the cryptids prove too overwhelming, leaving you too horrified to continue? I really hope this explainer has given you the foundational knowledge and the confidence you need to get this fantastic game to the table and start fighting back. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the survival mechanics of horrified American monsters, and good luck out there in Cross Creek.